time for us to double back on our discussion. We had in the phone-in segment, we'll be talking about the Cabinet Reshuffle. We'll be looking at the cost of governance and analysis on Cabinet Reshuffle in Nigeria, the latest Cabinet Reshuffle. Now, it's no news that Tinubu has sacked 6 ministers from his cabinet and also forwarded to the National Assembly 7 ministerial nominees to take over from the vacant positions. The ministers that were relieved from their cabinets were Professor Tahir Mamman, Education; Uju Kennedy Ohaneye, Women Affairs; Mohammed Gwazo, State for Housing; Jamila Ibrahim, Youth Development; Lola Adejon, Tourism; and the suspended Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Betta Odu, who has been replaced. Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, disclosed this while briefing State House correspondents after the Federal Executive Council meeting presided over by the President at the Council Chamber, the Presidential Villa Abuja. Now, joining us virtually to analyze the intricacies and everything concerning the President's Cabinet Reshuffle and it's been a move towards cutting the cost of governance and the state of the nation, we have Emmanuel Osemeka, a public affairs analyst. Thank you for joining us.
Nina, thank you for having me.
Good morning. It's good to have you. Now, before we kick off straight, to our listeners, our phone lines, we're leaving our phone lines open for WhatsApp messages. So if you're interested in contributing on the conversation we have this morning, do well to send your WhatsApp message. And in the course of our conversation, we'll definitely take your messages, please. No calls, just messages, if you're interested in contributing. Now, thank you, Mr. Emmanuel Osemeka, for joining us this morning. It's good to have you. So what's your thought on this cabinet reshuffle that has happened, the long-awaited reshuffle? What's your thought on it? Is it worth the wait that Nigerians, is it worth the wait? Did it meet up the expectation based on what you've seen and your thoughts so far?
Well, for me, I just think that the federal government is yet to clearly understand probably what exactly they want to achieve and how they want to achieve it. I say that against the backdrop of the fact that initially we thought the government, when they announced that there was going to be cabinet reshuffle, that they were going to do away with a lot of the political appointees and sort of increase the number of technocrats, within the ministerial, team. Unfortunately, what we've seen is more of a like for like. But it remains to be seen how the newly, nominated ministers are going to fare within the Tinubu administration and to supposedly help to deliver whatever the objective of the Renewed Hope agenda is for the next 2 years. I'm also quite concerned that the cabinet reshuffle did not meet my own expectation. I thought that, for example, Doris Anite, who cut her teeth in the banking industry, was made the Minister for Trade, Industry and Investment. And now she's Minister of State for Finance. It sounds like you're moving her to the area where she has some level of strength. But unfortunately, she has Minister Wale Edu, who is the substantive Minister of Finance and the coordinating Minister of Finance. I do not even understand why Dr. Jamila, the Minister for Youth, was removed and replaced with her Minister of State. There are quite a number of appointments that I really don't understand. Tahir, who was the Minister of Education, in my view, is one of the core technocrats within the Tinubu team. And now he's been sacked and is replaced with a politician. Many of us have cried and shouted that there are too many politicians within the cabinet, and that is why it appears there is no some level of performance coming to power. The minister that talks a lot with no action, the minister who is quite condescending and talks to Nigerians as if they owe him something special. The minister for defense, the minister for state for defense. I also do not understand why you would have a minister for national planning, have a minister for finance, and have a minister of state. I see that as called duplication of functions. I do not see how they're going to navigate through it. In the past, the minister for state for finance usually manages the National Planning Commission. That's how it's been. And the cost of governance has not been reduced. Instead, it has been increased. Yes, there has been some announcement in terms of merging of certain agencies and all that, but some of these agencies are constitutionally, legislated, and they have to go back to the National Assembly to work on those legislation that gave birth to those agencies. For example, the Niger Delta
before we
Commission.
get to that, Mr. Osemeka, before we get to that now, I love the fact that you've spoken across board, what could have been done differently and what was not done. Although we spoke to some Nigerians and they seemed quite a little bit, saying that the Minister of Education was a good move. But I was a little bit differently, because, well, we have someone with such a great background in health handling education in Nigeria. But bringing it back now to the cost of governance. One of the means, or one of it was said that the aim is to cut the cost of governance. And you've already started that line of thought. Could you throw a deeper dive into it, telling us why you think this is not seen as a cutting cost of governance move?
Okay, so if you take a cursory look at our historical perspective, in the starting from 1999, President Olusegun Obasanjo had 16 ministries. 16 or 18 ministries. President Yaradua had 21 ministries. President Goodluck Jonathan had 23 ministries. He later cut it down to 20 ministries. President Buhari had 26 ministries. He later brought it down to 24 ministries. President Tinubu has 41 ministries. Out of the 41 ministries, he sacked 5 ministers and increased and sent in the names of, is this 7 or thereabouts, additional ministers?
7.
What's the number again? Can you remind me?
7.
7 new ministers. So you sack 5, you add 7. Are you reducing or increasing? So the cost of governance has not been reduced. They've not done anything on the Orosanya reports. The essence of the Orosanya report was to be able to reduce cost of governance, reduce overhead costs, do away with some ministries, some agencies and departments of government, merge as many as can be merged. The only thing that has happened is that the proliferation of the Development Commission, which is the political, for me, connotation from across politicians, from all divides. The Niger Delta Development Commission was originally established to take care of the deprivation, the degradation, and the destruction that happened to the Niger Delta. Absolutely. Then, when the Northeast Development Commission was established to be able to take care of the accelerated development of the Northeast Nigeria because of the Boko Haram activities, even though for me, it will be a duplication of the humanitarian ministry. Then by extension, there's a west, east, southeast development commission, then southwest. For me, just a proliferation. So if you add all of that together, it's just a waste. And this was done recently. So what he just simply did was to merge all of them and call them what was the name? Something regional, Ministry for Regional Development or something like that.
Yes.
That's just being clever by half. Because the truth of the matter is that ministry will be too humongous for one person to manage. Because you're dealing with almost the same thing that different line ministries can actually handle across these same series of political zones. Unfortunately, the administration is just being clever by half. They've just done what I would personally call motion without movement.
All right. Still on the motion without movement. Now, I'm glad you touched on the fact that the Niger Delta Development Commission, Northeast Development Commission, South, where all the commissions have been put together to Regional Development Commission, thereby making it look a lot more cumbersome. But we see the like of the merging. What do you think is the possible long-term consequences of the merging of the Ministry of Tourism and Culture, put it into one? What is the implication of that, especially on Nigeria's global competitiveness in this sector? How does this impact on that particular ministry?
If you recall, in the past, we used to have Federal Minister of Information, Culture. I think the Federal Minister of Information, National Orientation, Culture and Tourism, or something like that. It used to be one ministry across. With one minister and possibly an additional minister of state. We used to have that. Then for political expediency, it was dissected into three ministries. The Federal Ministry of Culture and National Orientation. They now have tourism separate and culture. And now they recently called it culture and creative economy. When you look at the acronym, it sounds serious and sounds business-like. But unfortunately, it's not just enough to call somebody a name that has one humongous meaning. Like if somebody's name is good luck, it doesn't mean the person will have good luck, right? But that is the assumption in this part of the world. Unfortunately, we do not, and we have not come to that place where we understand that we have to work to earn. So merging the Ministry of Tourism and Culture and Creative Economy, for me, is just walking back from the error they made initially. I so believe that that ministry should be merged with the Prime Minister of Information and National Orientation, because the truth is, I do not see what the Minister for Information and National Orientation will be so busy with that he cannot manage our tourism and culture and creative economy. What you need is to ensure, to strengthen the departments, agencies of government, make them revenue generating agencies by pushing them to go and attract foreign investment in the cultural sector, cultural and creative sector, in the tourism sector. Tourism should be seen from the business standpoint. Yeah. There are several cultural activities, there are several tourism sites in Nigeria that is not yielding anything to the country. And every day we are just pushing and saying, we'll increase fuel crude consumption, crude production to 2 million barrels. We'll increase crude production to 1.5 million barrels. We went from losing 200,000 barrels per day to 400,000 barrels to 1 million to 2 million to 800,000 barrels per day. It's very, very unfortunate that the failures of successive administration in recent past has not been able to be curbed by this administration, in my own view. So, like I still describe it, for me, it's all motion with no movement. The minister that is going to handle the culture, tourism, and the creative economy is still the same minister. Even when she handled the Ministry of Culture and Creative Economy, I haven't seen anything very significant that she has done to show that she knows what and how to, make that ministry a money spinner for the government, other than her usual, poetry on television, hours on ending. Maybe the president likes the poetry, because I call her the minister for poetry. That's all I see.
All right. Before we continue the conversation, we announced earlier that we'll be taking WhatsApp messages from our listeners, because we had a phone-in segment and lots of people were trying to reach in. So let's quickly look at a couple of WhatsApp messages we have this morning. Starting off with, okay, he didn't put his name, but it says, "Good morning, Trustee. Please let me correct an impression. You have said that there's power outbreak in the north and misleading in your public analysis. I mean, Abiokuta, we don't have power for days now. You should stop instigating Nigerians against Nigerians." I'm sorry. We had a report here that stated that due to a faulty cable, the north is experiencing power outage. if there is power outage in Abeokuta, I believe there's a cogent reason, and we hope that the distribution companies there would have a response to it. But information that has been out in the news has stated that due to a faulty cable, there is power outage in the north. That is information that is out there, and I believe if you have access to it, you definitely see that information out there as well. Do we still have more WhatsApp messages, or we'll continue with the line of our conversation? Well, let's go on now. Back to Mr. Osemeka. Are you still there with us? All right, now let's talk about the transition for civil servants and officials that have been affected by this merger. Ministries have been merged. This means there's a likelihood of some jobs being lost and a difficult transition process. How do you think this can be handled to avoid job loss, especially with the economic situation we have today?
Well, I think we should just leave that at the doorstep of labor. Our labor unions have have looked largely clear, largely emasculated by the Tinubu's administration. Emasculated either by some accusations or arrests or whatever it is, or harassment or intimidation. So the labor unions have been largely intimidated. I'll use the word more carefully, emasculated. Because under normal circumstances, if what the president said sometime early this year, that the original report is going to be looked into with a view to reducing cost of governance and to be able to, respond to the yearnings of Nigerians, because the government came in and began to behave like children who just entered into a candy shop and began to swallow all the chocolate on the shelf. They began to live such a luxurious life as if Nigeria has suddenly become China plus US plus UK and France combined as a country. I mean, for a country that is so poor, with 41% food inflation and 37%, core inflation. I mean, urban inflation at the level of almost 29% or there. But there's no right thinking leader that will come in like the Tinubu administration came in and began to, exhibit such level of opulence and luxury. We don't have enough to feed the nation. You're buying 2 private jets for your presidential move. We don't have enough eat and spare. You're buying SUVs for National Assembly members who practically do nothing but rubber stamp decisions that are not in the interest of Nigerians, with SUVs of 150, 160 million per one, excluding the pool vehicles and other luxuries. I mean, you hear a senator come out to say that, 13 million naira is too small for him in a month. For God's sake, these guys are so insensitive, yet they cannot even tinker with the minimum wage above 70,000. It took them 1 year and 6 months to be able to come up with 70 million with a lot of intimidation. So I leave that at the doorsteps of labor to, deal with the government and decide how they want to move forward with the measures and possible loss of jobs or what have you. When President Olusegun Obasanjo came and merged Ministries when he became president in 1999, he had robust engagement with the labor unions, and eventually many of them were paid a lot of money in cash. A lot of things now became monetized, so they reduced cost of governance drastically. That is the expectation many of us had with the Tinubu administration, thinking that for a man who ran Lagos for 8 years, and supposedly the man that was touted to have built Lagos, even though we know that that's a fat lie from wherever it is that they picked it from, But the reality is that the Tinubu administration has not shown good faith. The Tinubu administration has not shown that they understood what governance is and how to go about it. It's all about divide and rule syndrome. And unfortunately, for me personally, I do not see anything significant that this administration will achieve, given the way they are going.
All right, given a broad, let's look at the details of those who have been appointed. Do you think they have the ability to deliver on, the mandate and handle governance Do you think they have what it takes? Being that there's certain pressure from Nigerians who are looking up to them and expecting more. Okay, cabinet reshuffle, give us people who can do better. And he has brought people whom he thinks can do better. And, these are better people. Do you think there are actually better people that can, streamline and implement the president's mandate or even make lives better for Nigerians?
Earlier, it's still a mixed bag for me. It's still a mixed bag for me. The appointment, reshuffle, sack, and reshuffle is still a mixed bag for me. Replacing Doris Anite with Jumoke Oduwole, right? Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, who was, during the Buhari administration, I think, special assistant or special advisor to the vice president on ease of doing business.
Yes.
And I think she continued in that stead with this administration until now. She's really cut her teeth in the investment area, but the ease of doing business in Nigeria has not changed.
No, now she has been
So the question is,
made into the Ministry of
yes,
Industry, Trade and Investment.
Yes, that's where she is now. She's now been posted as in, she's one of the new ministers, so she's going to go through the screening. So the question for me is, if Doris Anite didn't do well, supposedly, as a banker who is supposed to understand how to market products, so the idea is to market Nigeria and investment drive. If she didn't do well, and she's made a minister of state now, which for me is a demotion, and Jumoke Oduwole, who was special assistant or special advisor, to become a substantive minister, for me that's a promotion. And Jumoke is a lawyer by training, and she's been in the advisory role for, call it, 6 years, and or more than that. And still, her advice is either her advice is not being heeded, or people are finding it difficult to interpret her advice in the area of ease of doing business. Because ease of doing business in Nigeria has not really changed drastically beyond the touted, tax reforms that we are yet to see. Okay, registering for new business and starting to do business with the multiplicity of taxations and the harassment you get and all of that, it has not made it very easy to do business in Nigeria. Getting access to Nigerian market that we always shout, 200 million people, market size and blah. We have not really done, a yeoman's job with that sector. So remember, what new role or strategy or policy that Dr. Jumoke Oduwole is going to bring, given her experience in the office of ease of doing business, which I believe most likely the president might be thinking, since you've been in charge of advocating and pushing Nigeria to make doing business easier, come and drive the investment, trade and investment angle of this administration. So remember, that's an appointment I'm keenly going to follow to understand what she's going to bring afresh. Regarding Bianca Ojukwu in the Ministry of State for Foreign Affairs, well, I mean, it's not a bad appointment. However, if you gave the Anambra slot as a substantive minister and removed the Minister for Women Affairs for obvious reasons, because she could not manage the political angle, and she found it very difficult to work with the PAMSEC and directors and, of course, the parliament for whatever it was. And now you're replacing her with another woman from Anambra State, and the best you can give is the Minister of State, which in the eyes of many is a demotion. I don't think that is the right thing to do for a country that is trying to win the hearts of the people, most especially Southeast Nigeria, that is already bedeviled with insecurity, sit at home on Mondays, even now on Tuesdays, and all that. So I don't know the negotiations that took place before she was appointed, because I know that Uju Ohanenye is an APC woman, Bianca is an ABGA woman. So I do not know the political machinations that took place before Bianca was appointed. But Bianca will make a fantastic minister. She was an ambassador before under Jonathan's administration. So she's in the right place. So you will call that appointment like a square peg in a square hole. Okay. So there are a few that they got right, but the question is, how are they to, interpret the supposed renewed hope agenda of Mr. President, especially in the next 2 years?
All right, quickly now, before we take our WhatsApp message, I want to quickly get your opinion on Mohammed Maigari Dinyadi, who has been appointed as the Minister of Labour and Employment. He previously served as the Minister of Police Affairs. Now we see the whole Labour Union, ASU strike, Labour negotiating and all of that. Do you think he has what it takes to manage that ministry appropriately? Being with someone who has been more security focused, his experience has been there. Do you think he can handle that?
In my view, that appointment is made in bad faith. Excuse me for using that. Because what I've seen is that maybe he's posted there for further state capture to ensure that the labor unions are kept under subjugation, given his experience with the police affairs and all that. That's my personal view, and I stand to be corrected, and I want to be proven wrong. For President Muhammadu Buhari's 8 years, I have said severally that I'm waiting for President Muhammadu Buhari to prove me wrong. And for 8 years, he failed to prove me wrong. Everything I said about him came to pass. And I've also said concerning President Tinubu that he will have nothing to show given the way he's going. He does not understand Nigerian diversity. He does not understand that you cannot take people from one side of the country and make them ministers, directors from, in the key sectors of the economy of Nigeria, even when they are not the best. That's not the way to run. He should take a cue from President Olusegun Obasanjo's style, and he will see performance. That is what Nigeria is about. Nigerian government must look like Nigeria.
All right. Thank you so much. I like that. Nigerian government must look like Nigeria. Let's quickly take the WhatsApp message we have before we conclude our discussion. We have a couple of WhatsApp messages. Let's have the WhatsApp message. From Mohammed Dansadu from Zamfara State, said there are a lot of controversies around Minister of State of Defense Bello Mutawale, someone that cannot even secure his hometown, talk less of his state. It's a serious if it is a serious government, he would have been sacked and not even changed to another ministry. Well, yes, we've spoken about that here on the show, and let's also take this other message. He said, to me, the government needs to still reduce ministers, and most of them are not delivering on their appointment. Many has failed. FCT Minister and Minister of Works and some selected ones are doing just fine. Thank you so much for your messages. Now, in conclusion, okay, before we get to that, we have Kangiwa Hussein Ikuta from Niger. He said, good morning, Trust TV. I want to appreciate you for the effort and of Mr. President by sacking some ministers and reshuffling some, but I don't know why Minister of State for Defense was not affected. I advise Mr. President to sack the Minister of State for Defense out so that peace will 100% return to the north. Thank you so much for that message. He said, good morning, Lillian. He said, first of all, I want to congratulate the president for being able to make the adjustment to his cabinet. We saw how President Muhammad Buhari kept seat warmers with great underperformance for 8 years without bothering to make any change. The only one that was removed was one that could have received a presidential pardon for her mistake and allowed to remain because of her experience and excellent performance. However, it is not an uhuru yet that some ministries have been removed. The performance of the incoming ministers will be a criteria to judge whether the change that the president has done is justified. Well, thank you there for your thoughts. Now, in our concluding conversation with our guest here, we have Mr. Osemeka still on the line. In conclusion, to wrap up, having analyzed, the ministers and their performance and expectations, what do you think could have been done differently? Let's tilt to a solution. What do you think could have been done differently? And let's start with that first before we give a future projection.
Okay, so my expectation was that the president should have gone, to technocrats. Technocrats have no political axe to grind, and they have a name to protect in their industry. If you take a look at Ali Pate, He's a core professional. You could see the direction he's going. It might be slow, but painstakingly, you see what he's doing. If you take a look at the communication and digital economy, I think that's what it is. That's the ICT minister. You could see the direction he's going. He's creating almost 3 million jobs for young people, starting with 1 million, and he's doing fantastically well. That is his area of core competence. You see Tunji Ojo in the internal affairs. He's doing fantastically well. That's one of my best ministers. Governor Wike, Minister Wike, is a man you love to hate, but when it comes to performance, he cuts his teeth as well. Minister Mahi, yes, a politician, but he's a performer, but you have more controversy with his performance than, so there are people who have shown that they have what it takes to deliver on their mandate. The list is endless. Some of them are technocrats, yet they are still not able to do. But I believe, for example, if you go back to the days of President Goodluck Jonathan, he had Akinwumi Adesina, who revolutionized the agricultural sector. He was one that came up with the improved paddy rice in Nigeria, and was able to introduce sectoral agricultural chain, and we are still on that till tomorrow. You remember Olusegun Aganga, who was the trade and investment minister, and he brought in humongous investment into Nigeria. We were having humongous inflow, foreign direct investment. Why? Because he was a core investment banker from the Wall Street. You look at Aaron Maute, he was in charge of SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission. If you look at Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, core technocrat, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala was assisted by Namadi Usman. So there are quite a number of people you can point at various, different governments of the past, and you will see that these are core professionals who understood what they were supposed to do. They came in, they were not interested in politics, they were more interested in delivering on the mandate that was given to them. Unlike today, where you have almost 80% or 85% of the appointees who are core politicians, either ex-governors, ex-speaker, ex-legislators, who failed woefully in their previous appointment or in their previous elected offices. So when you have a man or a woman that has failed over time and you appoint him in a troubled period, what exactly do you expect that person to do other than sleep? The Minister for Agri is a core politician. He does not understand what agriculture is. He just speaks grammar. The Minister for Power has no business being in the power sector. You need to change that man immediately. The Minister for Defense and the Minister for State for Defense has no business being there. Bring in a retired general and possibly a police retired IG or DIG as Minister of State for Defense, a Minister of State, Minister of Defense. That's what you need. Unfortunately, it's for politics, and that's the best we're going to do. So Tinubu is a politician, and that's exactly how it's going to go. So that's my take.
All right, let's look at future projection. How will this reshuffle affect Nigeria's policy continuity? Being that most of these ministers that were removed had certain things they had in line, particularly in sectors like environment, infrastructure, women affairs, and humanitarian. They had certain where long-term plans are crucial for things to be actualized. So looking at the future, what are we expecting from this reshuffle, and how would it affect, our policy continuity and, the nation in general?
Sincerely speaking, my sister, I do not envy any of the newly appointed or any of the reshuffled ministers. I do not envy any of them. They are going into troubled waters. Therefore, what do they need to do? I expect them to look at whatever policies or strategies or directions that their predecessors were managing, with a view to sitting down with the line minister, with the line agency directors, the civil servant, the bureaucracy, to look at what were the lessons learned from the previous occupier of that seat. Where did that person go wrong? What were the challenges, the biggest challenges they would face? And what are the possible solutions they feel? Many of them have been in that ministry for 10, 15, 20 years. So they have institutional memory of that ministry. And they understood things that were done in the past that moved the ministry forward, and by extension, move Nigeria forward. That is what they should pick up immediately. I call those ones low-hanging fruits. There are always low-hanging fruits. When you pick up low-hanging fruit, you make the best of results. Let me give you a classical example. Festus Keyamo is not somebody I love to commend, but Festus Keyamo, after all his controversies in the as Minister of State for Labor, don't forget he was Minister of State for Niger Delta before he was moved to Minister of State for Labor. He didn't do pretty good at the Labor Ministry because he was underpinned by the robust Dr. Ndige. But today, he's the Minister of Aviation. You could see what he's doing. What is he doing? He's looking at the failures of the past with a view to looking at what did our people fail to do here. And those are low-hanging fruit. He picked them up. Those that needed to be signed, he signed them. Those that he needed the presidential approval, he went straight to the president and said, Mr. President, we need this to happen now. We have not developed our erythrotropics, man, that English is big for me. I mean, the airport surroundings and all that. That's another area. We have gotten the highest level of approval for our airports today, and he's doing a fantastic job there. I mean, I'm not his best, I'm not his fan, but where I see people performing, and especially those who are smart. So you look at King Jojo, what did he do? He went to the areas where Nigerians were suffering most, and he began to solve it. For example, do you know how difficult it is for Nigerians to get driver's license today in Nigeria? It's practically impossible. Practically impossible. I applied for driver's license 4 years ago. Till today, I've not gotten one.
Okay, so in conclusion, you would say that,
those are low-hanging fruit.
Don't, like you said,
people who don't
envy them, but you hope that they will put it.
I also think that the Secretary to the Government of Information to be changed.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Emmanuel Osemeka, for this very insightful and eye-opening conversation. We hope that the ministers, it's good to have you. Thank you so much for joining us on the show this morning. All right.
Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you, sir. We hope that the ministers, would listen to Nigerians, work with Nigerians, and, let their performance speak for themselves. It's fortunate that we had those whom their performance are speaking for them, whether they are out there in social media or different TV stations, we don't even know, but their work is speaking for them. So we hope that these new ministers, we understand they're coming in to face a lot of pressure and expectations. So let them step up and, let Nigerians see their work speak for them.